Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. Today we're taking a look at one of my very favorite pieces of vintage computing technology, the Tandy Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 100 laptop. Now this has been called by many people as the first real laptop computer. Now there were other contenders, but this thing was a very portable computer in an age when computers were anything but portable. This has a little LCD screen, it's got a mechanical, nice clicky keyboard, and it stays running for days at a time on a bunch of AA batteries. So this was a real revolution for reporters, for writers, for anyone on the go who needed to do any word processing, do any kind of telecom work, basic computing, math functions, all kinds of stuff. This opened up a lot of possibilities in the portable computer world. Now, I've actually owned a few of these before. These are not my original ones. Years ago when I was a kid, a friend of the family gave me their collection of TRS-80 equipment, a couple Model 100s, a 102, even had the elusive Model 200, which was more of a clamshell laptop, along with a bunch of accessories like the cassette tape drive, some disk drives, acoustic coupler modem, all that good stuff, which unfortunately I no longer have. When I moved from Alaska to Minnesota, I just could not bring all of my hoarded junk down here. Fortunately, I've gotten a couple new ones, new to me. They're not in the greatest condition. The cases are kind of yellowed, missing the battery covers. One of these is missing some keys on the keyboard. I don't actually know if these work yet. This video is the first time I've had them out of the box and actually tried to fire them up. I believe this one came from eBay and it was pretty cheap because it was in as-is condition with missing parts. This one came from FreeGeek, and that's a local computer recycling place which I've talked about occasionally. I keep meaning to go over there and do a tour. I have not had time yet, but they are a really cool store. They've got all kinds of modern computer stuff, vintage computer stuff. If you have old computer stuff yourself and you don't want it to go in the landfill, bring it to FreeGeek if you're in the Twin Cities or one of their other locations, and they will see that it either gets reused, given to students, used to train young people in computer technology, or just recycled if it's absolutely not worth anything else. Now, I was down at FreeGeek a while back, and one of the staff asked if I was looking for any junk in particular, any computer stuff, and I said, yeah, if you have any TRS-80 laptops. One of the staff said, yeah, and he turns around to the desk, pulls out this thing, and says, here you go, I'm never going to use this. So thank you, FreeGeek staff. This one is particularly interesting. It does have some damage, like I said, some of the keys are missing, but it has this bubble memory on the back. That is kind of a weird, obscure storage device from the 70s and 80s. I've never actually seen or used a bubble memory, so that's going to be interesting to investigate. You have a few ports on the back. There's a serial port. Yeah, it looks like a DB25 printer port. There is actually a printer port, but it looks more like an IDE port. This was before a lot of connectors kind of standardized and stabilized. People were still making up their own connectors left and right. There is a phone port for the acoustic coupler modem, and there's this cassette tape port. So before floppy disk drives were in common use, this used a cassette tape adapter, and you could load and save programs on a magnetic tape that way. I actually had one of those, kind of worked, was kind of kludgy and slow. Now that was kind of a nice feature in the days when the internal memory on this thing was either 4 kilobytes, or if you really splurged and spent like $1,300 back in 1983, you could get this with I think up to 24 kilobytes. So again, mostly for word processing, writing documents, not really for heavy computing, not really for running massive files. And if you did have a massive file, if you wanted to play a really complex game, you would have to offload that onto your tape drive to be able to free up space for anything else. We've got a 6-volt power input, our on-off switch, and we have a contrast adjustment for the display over here. No backlight, so you can't really read this in the dark, but saves battery life that way. Now we do have a DB9 connector over here, but I don't remember what that does. I'm gonna have to look that up. And then we have these mysterious modem switches. Yeah, I didn't even use these back when I had one of these myself when I was a kid, because we didn't have a real landline phone. When I was a kid, we lived on an island in Alaska. We had hand crank army phones, and my phone number was 3. So I didn't even really get to use a modem until maybe the year 2000, and I was already out of date. So that's how it goes. Now there are some expansion slots in the bottom. You could put a ROM chip in here, and you could get all kinds of add-ons, custom software, all kinds of stuff that, again, I never played around with. I saw some old Tandy magazines once, and you could mail order all kinds of crazy ROMs for spreadsheet stuff, for extra math stuff, for even a different operating system. So interesting things that, again, not everybody had, and I have not experienced personally myself. You might notice there's a switch here. You can turn memory power on or off. And I believe, if I remember correctly, there's a coin cell, something like a CR2032 in here somewhere, which has probably died since the 1980s. So if we want the memory to work correctly, and if we want this to keep its memory when we take out the AA batteries, we're gonna have to check on that coin cell. All of these screws are very loose. Someone has been into this recently, and it wasn't me. So there are the guts of our unit. We have keyboard, display, motherboard, and that's pretty much it. And the little battery is actually a soldered in place unit, which I had forgotten. So unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to replace that right away. If we wanna do that, I'm gonna have to do some soldering and order a new one of those on Amazon. But we can look at what's in here for now. We have the back side of that option ROM slot and then that system bus slot. And that's so you could slot on additional big units, like this thing probably clips into that system bus slot on the bottom. We have 3 RAM chips and then a spot for an option RAM chip. We have a Z80 CPU, a UART chip, IO processor chip. This is the built-in ROM with the power supply stuff over here and the acoustic modem stuff over here. Yeah, very basic 1980s equipment. Now this one's going to need more electricity. We have 2 battery banks here. I assume this one is for the Tandy and this one is for the bubble memory. Again, the battery covers are missing. There is an external connector here on the bubble RAM, but it's not marked, so I don't know what that is. I don't know what kind of power it wants. I also hear something clinking around in there, so I think I'm going to open this up and just see what's going on, make sure everything's intact, make sure there's not some loose piece that's going to short out. Now, I noticed this bubble RAM actually uses straight screws to attach to the laptop. So this is so old, the computer companies had just heard about Phillips screws and they weren't quite sure if they liked that newfangled Phillips thing. So few companies still stuck with these straight screws. Of course, nowadays everything is a triple reverse security hex bit that you have to special order the driver for. But back in these days, you could get at least some of your computer stuff open with just the simplest flat screwdriver. All right, so those screws went all the way through into the computer. So I think, yeah, we can now separate the bubble memory. And this is what was clicking around in there. I can't actually tell what that is. Is that an insect part? Is that a bean? There's a couple of them. They're very dried out. Yeah, I don't know if there were like grubs in here or what. I've heard of grub in Linux, but never in a Tandy 100. Here's what our bubble RAM expansion looks like. We have a special ROM chip in the expansion slot, and then we have this ribbon cable plugged into the main bus. This unit actually has the battery door on it. I'm assuming that this unit actually gets powered through the bus somehow from the bubble memory, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Our bubble RAM here has those battery compartments. This is the actual bubble unit here. So that dingus right there is where the magnetic bubbles happen. And this is a RAM system that actually uses bubbles, like little bubbles of magnetism move through this chip. And I guess they're kind of like punch cards where the orientation of the bubbles, the arrangement of the bubbles means something digitally to the computer. Bubbles get created on one side, they get destroyed and read on the other side. I don't fully understand it. I looked this up on Wikipedia, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of cool. And it looks like there are different bays here, so you could have multiple bubble units. This one might be as big as 1 megabyte. I'm not really sure. That would have been a huge size for a computer this age. Now that I've gotten those mystery bug, bean, egg case things out of there, we'll put this back together and see if we can fire this one up. Now, just for comparison on the inside, this one is slightly different with the RAM chips. We've got these 3, looks like option chips, where the other one had just 3 chips like this. I don't know if this means there's more RAM in here or less, because I'm gonna have to look up each of these numbers to see what these things are. Turn on the memory battery, which was off on this one. Can adjust the contrast so you can see it there. All right, so we have all of the good old TRS-80 stuff that I remember, and I think this might actually be a 24K unit. It's 21446 bytes free. When powered up in ROM, these had by default the basic interpreter, basic programming language, a text writing program, a telecom program, an address program, and a scheduler program. And you could get to those with these little arrow keys here. Yeah, you had some other kind of hotkeys, paste, label, print, break. Function keys, you could have these F keys kind of mapped to different things in different programs, and then all of these little symbols are just empty slots in the basically the operating system. This is essentially the desktop, so all these little dash dot dash could be a different shortcut or program, either a basic program, a text document, things of that nature. Let's see if I remember any basic programming. Ah, there we go. I can make a loop. Not used to these keyboards. I actually learned touch typing on something like this, but I'm still making some typos on it. Let's see if I can remember how to save this. We've got menu keys, so we can load, save, find, copy, cut, select, or menu. And there we are, test.do, test.document. So that is our text file that we just made. To get anything interesting onto this, we could type it in manually. We can type in an entire basic program on the keyboard. We could go find a cassette deck. We could go find an acoustic coupler modem, or we could use this thing. So this is something that I bought online recently. It's called a TRS-80 backpack. So it is a serial port, essentially, little 3D printed case, and it's got a memory card in here, and this emulates the disk drive. So the computer here thinks that this is a Tandy portable disk drive. You plug it into the back, you can fill up that SD card with all the Tandy programs you can find, either ones you wrote, stuff you found online, stuff you had on your old tape drive, whatever, and then you can use this as basically an external drive plugged into the back of the unit. So we need to take out these two screws. This thing needs its own internal power, so we need another AA battery. All right, so we're going to turn this thing on, plug it in, and we're going to go over to basic. I am copying this off of another video that goes over how the backpack drive works. I will throw that down in the description, and I'll probably throw a link somewhere up here in the top of the video as well. All right, we eventually got an error, so I think I might have set up my SD card incorrectly. I'm gonna have to go look at the manual again. So I went on the GitHub page for that backpack drive, went through their documentation, their known issues. One issue that they discussed is that exact error, that DS error, which is related, I think in this case, to this being a very old Tandy Model 100. So this is one of the first ones that came out, and apparently the first few released had the wrong resistors on the serial port. And that was a known issue. They released a technical services bulletin that told you to turn in your main board and they'd put the right resistors on, or you could go in there and apparently try to solder your own on. I don't know if I really want to mess with that at this point. Looking at the serial number, this is a catalog number 263802. Serial number starts with 303, and anything before 306 is going to have that issue with the resistors. So unfortunately, it seems like this one is just too old to work with that backpack drive. I never knew about this issue. I learn stuff about these every time I pick one up. So we might have to set this one aside. The other one was not working right away, so we might have to try a little bit harder to get that one working. I did take the bubble RAM off again, and I verified this one is a 306 serial number, so this one is new enough that it should work. It should have the correct resistors in there. Unfortunately, this one is in the worst condition, so yeah, we'll see. Maybe we can make a Franken laptop out of the parts of these two right now. Just to narrow down what isn't working with this one, I'm going to go ahead and remove the RAM module. I'm going to remove the bus connector and the ROM chip that controls this RAM module. As long as I keep myself grounded and don't have any static, it should be okay to set that aside for now and come back to it later. Alright, without the bubble RAM unit, this one works. So there was something funky with that bubble RAM device. It wasn't getting power or it wasn't functioning properly. Once I pulled all that out, this laptop turns on. All right, so we've got that serial port listening. going to turn on the backpack drive. We have an initial program loader that popped up. Now they did say in the instructions that this could take several minutes to bootstrap TS-DOS onto the laptop, so we're going to let it sit here and see what happens. Now in the meantime, I'm going to cannibalize a couple keys off of this other one just to fix the missing keys on this unit. Found a keycap puller. And yes, it could use a good cleaning in between all the keys. I'll get around to that later. I just want to make sure these work before I put any effort into cosmetics. All right, TS-DOS has been bootstrapped into memory, so now we want to save it. The GL there was just from me popping the keycaps back on. All right, there we go, TS-DOS. Okay, so now we are in TS-DOS. So this is a kind of alternative operating system or disk access system. And this lets us access external serial drives like the Tandy portable disk drive, or in this case, the backpack. So right now we're looking at the internal RAM. If we hit F4, that goes to the external disk. There's nothing on the disk now because I wiped out that card actually because I was trying to get this to work on the other one. I made a copy of everything that comes on the preloaded SD card with that backpack, wiped it out, downloaded the new Sector 0 from the GitHub just to see if that helped. That means there's nothing else on the drive, so we're gonna have to go put some more stuff on this drive to see what we can do. This down arrow is a little bit funky. It doesn't want to click every time. All right, there are the files that I just downloaded from Club 100. We have to actually load it from the disk into the RAM, so we'll go ahead and do that. There's our file. Oh, it doesn't like that one. All right, this one's taking forever to load. I may have actually filled up the RAM already. Yeah, we wiped it out, so that memory battery, I think, is no good. So when I turn this off and back on again, everything is gone from the RAM. Yeah, if we want to continue using this on a long-term basis, I'm going to have to desolder that internal memory battery and replace it. Okay, we've loaded a couple different things in. Well, this one says okay. That's an improvement, I guess. It seems like some of these are riding over the top of each other. So I've got Bach saved on top of Aliens. Yeah, we might have to wipe some of these out and try again. And we've just flatlined it. We've gotten the equivalent of a blue screen here. So turn that back on. We're right back to square one. We've tried some different things. We're gonna see if we can get this to work again. No, it still will not work. Yeah, it definitely looks corrupted. I don't quite know what's going on here. It seems like yeah, there's something weird about the way that this is loading from the backpack into the RAM. Yeah, somehow these files are still overwriting each other. All right, I was hoping this would be a little bit easier video. I thought it'd be relatively simple to just put new batteries in these, turn on the memory, fire them up, and we could show you some of the features of the original Tandy 100 along with the stuff you can do with this backpack drive. Unfortunately, as advertised, these are both scratch and dent units. They're both as is with some repairs needed, and we're going to need to do additional things. So I'm gonna pause this video for a moment. We're going to order some new memory batteries. I'm gonna see if I can find some of the other replacement parts like battery doors. I'm gonna read up a little bit more on this bubble RAM module to see if we can get that functional, and then maybe we'll come back to this. For you guys, it'll just be the next scene, but for me, it might be a little bit of time here and possibly a clean t-shirt. All right, we are back with the Tandy 100s. For you guys, it's been just a jump cut away, but for me, it's been a couple weeks because I haven't had time to work on these and I had to order some stuff. And I have to be pretty careful with this because there are a lot of components around that battery, so I'm not actually sure if I should desolder it from the back side. Boy, I was gonna say how nice it is that everything is easy to take out, but they've actually hidden one of the screws under one of the RAM chips here. So I know I own an IC puller, but it's one of those tools that I've owned for 20 years and have used once, so I have no idea where it is. We're just gonna try the old flat screwdriver trick and be real careful. Same with the battery terminals. You just have to very carefully pry them out of here. All right, there's our old memory battery. This might be the first time I've legitimately desoldered something from a computer motherboard. Granted, it's a very simple motherboard, but still, a little bit stressful. Also trying not to burn myself with the soldering iron. New battery is in place, and I just hope I haven't cross-connected any circuit traces on the back. Now, since I've had these things apart for 2 weeks, I've naturally forgotten where all the screws went, if I even had them, so We just got to kind of loosely clip back together until I can find the screws. I have also forgotten the hoops to jump through to get this little backpack drive mounted, so I had to go look that up again. Donnie's here to help as usual. Hello, Donnie's Tail. You're so helpful. While we're waiting, Donnie would like to remind you that you can see more of our cats, Donnie and Fluff, on their own channel, Donnie and Fluff's Cat Toy Reviews. Alright, nothing was happening, and I realized I left this turned on for 2 weeks, so the battery's dead, so we need to start over. Still having issues with this backpack thing. It doesn't seem to be consistently loading into the Tandy's RAM, and we are still getting this hard reset when I try to kill or delete a program out of the RAM. Yep, we are right back to factory settings, so we've lost TS-DOS, we've lost our connection to the backpack drive. Alright, I tried loading another program and then listing it, and yeah, this just looks like nonsense. I suspect the memory is corrupted on this TRS-80. I've never actually seen that in person, but it's really acting like there's just chunks missing or altered somehow in the memory. So as far as I can tell, there is something seriously wrong with this particular laptop. And remember, the other one here not only has all the worst keys, but is also too old to use that backpack because it has the wrong resistors in the serial port. I forgot this one has the expansion RAM just soldered in. It's not socketed, so we can't easily pull that out and swap it over to the other unit. Okay, well, if there's something corrupted or broken with this one, that might explain why the bubble RAM unit didn't work. This was the one that came with that bubble RAM module on the bottom. So since I can't really get anything working with this guy, I'm gonna set it aside, and I guess we're gonna go back to the slightly older one that I can't use the serial port with quite as well because of that component issue, but maybe we can get the bubble RAM working on here. So I'm gonna try to swap that into this guy and see if that at least looks like anything interesting. So we've reconnected our bubble RAM unit to the system bus, reinserted the bubble option ROM. Since I'm not 100% sure on the voltage on this option ROM, I'm not going to use the external power connector. So we have 4 batteries in the TRS-80. We have 7 batteries in the bubble unit. We do have a green light on the bubble unit down here, and the TRS-80 did come on. I am not seeing any bubble stuff showing up here. I don't know if we have to load that ROM somehow. We did not get any instructions with this, and I can find almost no information about this bubble unit on the internet. There are like 1 or 2 forum posts saying yes, it exists, but there is no manual that I can find. There are no instructions I can find. I am working blind with this thing. So digging around online, about the only thing I can find about loading option ROMs is to go into BASIC, and we do a command called call. I gotta replace these keys. 63012, and I think that's a memory location inside the computer. This is not specifically for the bubble ROM, but we have a bubble menu, so we called that ROM up, and it seems like it worked. So it looks like we have 126.25 K bytes. That's a lot more than we used to. Let's see what utility is for. All right, we can hook and unhook. We can init or verify. A little hesitant to run init. A little hesitant to run any of these first 3 because I don't know what they are, but let's do verify. All right, it said it was successful. F8, well, that goes back to basic. Another F8, and we are back in our root menu, and we have bubble now, so that has installed itself as a program, and we can get back to that at any time here. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Hopefully I'm not damaging anything. Asking for a password. I have no idea. I guess we don't know the password. I feel like this might be load file. If we had files in here, this might be save file, and this might be kill file. So kill being the delete command on here. This might be rename. I don't know what this is. Maybe it would populate later. Let's test that out. We're just making this up as I go, basically. So let's create a program. You know, the usual program that we always write. Let's save that as test. All right, we've got that. Let's go over to Bubble and see if we can load. Maybe not. Let's, oh, there we are in the VRAM. Let's say save file. Maybe we can save that over to the bubble. Enter page number 1. Okay. So if we go to bubble, okay, we have loaded that into the bubble RAM. So that's cool. It seems like it works, I guess. Let's see if we kill it. Sure. All right, we've killed that on the RAM, but it is still in the bubble. So if we go back to our root menu, yeah, that has disappeared. We do not have our test file anymore. And we can go over to bubble. We can say load, successful write. We go back to the root menu, and there it is. So, all right, so without knowing what I'm doing, I have figured out how to use the bubble RAM. That's kind of cool. I don't know how permanent the bubble RAM is. Does it die when I change the batteries? Is there a backup of some sort in there? Again, I really know nothing about it. Okay, since we can't get the backpack drive to work on this TRS-80, I'm going to see if I can connect it to a terminal on my modern computer. Now that might suffer from the same issues with the serial port. We'll have to wait and see. To even attempt this, I'm going to have to use this horrifying abomination of cable adapters. So we have to go from the female DB25 on the Tandy to this DB25 gender changer, over to a DB25 to DB9 adapter. Then we need a DB9 gender changer. Then we need a null modem adapter, and this is actually original Radio Shacks. This might be the same vintage as the laptop. All right, I have now changed this thing's gender twice and gotten this video banned in Texas. So now we go to the USB to serial adapter. And since this is terribly short, we're gonna go with a USB extension cable. So on the desktop, we're using CoolTerm. We've got our serial port selected, 9600 baud, 8 data bits, no parity, 1 stop bit, and we've got Exxon turned on. On the Tandy, we want to go into Telcom, and we want to look at stat. We are M7 I1E 10 PPS. We actually want to be 88 N1E. Now we are in 88 N1E mode, 10 PPS. So we want to go into terminal mode with F4. And we should be in full duplex. And now we want to go into download mode. That's not working. It says we have a break condition. So our tangle of cables may not be functioning properly. However, we did get something happening over on the Tandy, so it seems like we're trying to send a file. All right, we're gonna try going a little more old school. I think this is an old lap link cable, which was a thing from the 80s and 90s that combined serial port, parallel port, null modem, all in one, so you could connect your laptop to your desktop. All right, so I'm trying to get into the BIOS on my Linux desktop so I can enable the serial port, but the problem with these modern computers is they're so fast. They boot up so quickly, you have no window in which to hold down F12 or push F12 or whatever you're supposed to do to get into the BIOS screen. In the old days, they'd give you a second or two to actually push it. So I've tried booting this holding down F12, I've tried booting it spamming F12, I've tried pushing it once or twice. There's no way to get into the BIOS. I pulled out this old DOS laptop, but I can't even get it to power on. I can't remember, I may have had that problem in a previous video with this same laptop, and then maybe I just put it away again in the basement and forgot that it was broken. This thing has a serial port and is the slightly more modern equivalent of the Tandy laptop. I'm actually going to try this with Windows first. We have Linux on this tablet, but from what I've read online, connecting this with Linux is actually kind of a giant pain in the ass. You've got to download custom files, you've got to edit all your configs, you've got to recompile your TTY. I don't want to deal with any of that. I'm lazy, so we're going to just try something like CoolTerm again. Now this is a weird Atom 32-bit processor, but we've got Intel 32-bit version of CoolTerm, so hopefully that works. And that's going to be a no. All right, I installed Putty instead. That doesn't have quite as much detailed feedback as CoolTerm, but it is free, and I've used it for other stuff, so it should work well enough. We might have a connection. If we type something over here, maybe it'll show up over here. Something shows up over here. Well, we've got kind of nonsense characters, but that's a start. And same thing when I type over here, we get just nonsense unprintable characters on the TRS-80. Okay, I'm going to try slowing this down a little bit to 1200 baud. So we're still getting nonsense on the Tandy. We're getting nothing back this direction. All right, we've gone all the way down to 300 baud, which is apparently the native speed of the modem chip on the TRS-80. Same thing, we can get nonsense characters between the two. Again, I have to suspect it is that issue with the internal components of the modem not being quite up to spec on the first models. And again, this is one of the very earliest models of the TRS-80 Model 100. It was released way early. They didn't have all the bugs ironed out, so there are issues with that modem. It looks like if we want to use this with any kind of serial port stuff, we're going to have to tear it apart, do some more soldering. I'm not ready to do that at this point. I've already spent way too much time on this project. Well, I think that's where we have to leave this video, because while I'm not giving up on these Tandys, I am giving up on connecting them to anything over a serial port at the moment. This one, unfortunately, seems to have a corrupted memory chip or some other issue that I don't understand. And this one, while it works just fine, is so old that it doesn't have the correct serial port stuff. So these are still really cool. I still want to do some stuff with these, but I'm at a bit of a standstill right now. So if anyone out there knows a little bit more about the TRS-80 laptop series and can help me diagnose, say, the memory problems on this one, or if there's some easy fix or workaround for the serial port that hopefully doesn't require me to solder in new resistors. I'd like to avoid that if possible. I'm not much of a soldering guy. I fat finger stuff a lot, but I'll do it if I have to, and that might have to be a follow-up video. I would really like to get the portable backpack drive working correctly. I'd like to be able to load some of that software on. And yes, I do realize in the time it took me to make this video, I could have sat down at the keyboard and typed up all the basic programs that I loaded on here and run them just fine. But again, I'm pretty lazy, and I don't really have time to just sit down and type basic programs all day. I did back when I was 10, 11 years old and I had some of these for the first time. I typed up all kinds of stupid stuff. Now I am really happy that I got the bubble RAM working and was able to work with that, load stuff to it, save stuff from it, access the bubble RAM, interface with it, load the RAM module into memory without even really knowing anything about it, without finding any manuals, any information really online about this bubble unit. Again, this thing is so rare, I cannot find any documentation on it. If anyone out there has documentation or knows where I can find it, please send me that as well. Throw it down in the comments, send me a link, and I will check that out. I would love to play around with the bubble unit some more. I'd love to get into the details of how bubble RAM works, because I still don't really understand how it works. You can check out some of my other videos to see other weird vintage tech that I've torn down or played with or restored. Now, if you want to support more content like this of investigating old computers, trying to get old stuff working, saving things from the dumpster, I do have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the description below. You can subscribe to that or to my YouTube membership page. All of that support goes directly into making more videos like this, buying weird old technology, playing around with it, making the videos, and showing it out to you. So that support is always appreciated. It also helps the channel to like and subscribe, so if you enjoyed what you saw, please go ahead and do that. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.